Today, we're going to talk about the 4 pillars of team performance. What's interesting about team performance is that we actually know through research and experience what drives a high-performing work team. But first, let's go back to school. So remember when you were school age and you got put into a group and maybe you were the person who was doing all the work. Maybe you were the person who was, a great team player and pulling your weight. And hopefully you weren't the person who was, showing up late and taking the credit for it. Regardless, those school-aged experiences, they positioned us well for the workplace because you got to work with people. You don't have a choice. And often you don't get to choose the people that you work with. And so today, talking about what drives a high-performing work team, this is going to be very helpful for you, whether you are leading a team yourself or you are part of a team, which most of us, if not all of us, are in the workplace. So going back to those school groups, which I hated, by the way, I couldn't stand working with other people because I wanted things done, my way and didn't like the way that others typically would do it themselves, but still had to get along, still had to make the best of it, and frankly, couldn't do it all on my own. And so going back to those experiences for a minute and thinking about, ideally that you had some very positive experiences. You had some great group experience, some great teams, some great people that you worked with. But chances are you had some challenging moments as well. So you remember, trying to divvy up the tasks, like who's going to do what, who's going to produce what by when. And naturally, there was probably someone who took the lead. Maybe it was the smartest kid. Maybe it was the most dominant kid. But regardless, you had to work together. You had to produce some kind of outcome. And what was always interesting about schoolwork is that you were graded, right? You had a performance rating of some sort that came to the group. And so you were evaluated. And again, you see how this positioned us very well for the workforce, knowing that this was going to be our future. Again, you don't always get to choose who you're going to be working with, but the idea of working within a team is something that we see happen. It occurs constantly in our organizational life today. So building on some of those experiences, this is going to be helpful for you to really understand what's going to drive a team. Now, furthermore, we've all been on good teams. And today, ideally, you are on a good team. But have you been on a great team? And when I ask this question to leaders, typically they can pull out at least one experience in their career where they've been part of a great team. And so again, we know what drives great teams. We know from the research what actually will propel teams into that great category. And you can do this. If you're leading a team today, I'm going to share with you 4 key pillars that will help move your team from good to great. There are 4 pillars that drive high-performing work teams. Pillar 1 is identifying and leveraging the strengths within the team. And this can be done in a few different ways. One, you want to really uncover who brings what to the team. In many cases, there will be collective strengths. There will be overlap in strengths. Think about a senior team that is really strong on strategic thinking. However, there will also be individual strengths or more unique strengths that individuals offer to the group. And we want to be able to understand those. We want to uncover those. But most importantly, we want to leverage those. And so imagine that working with an executive team where a particular executive has a specific skill set, but it's not known within the group, and it is certainly not leveraged. In that case, we're not contributing fully to what the team could entirely be. In essence, its full potential. And so we need to uncover those. We need to identify what everyone brings in addition to the collective, but also understanding everyone's unique strengths. Recently, I was working with a team from the tech sector. One of their leaders had a particular skill set and interest around data analysis, really being able to dig in to information at a granular level and in a way that most of the team didn't recognize and didn't understand. So you can see how by bringing that to the surface, by being able to uncover that specific skill set within this group, and then furthermore being able to leverage it, how it contributes to the team as a whole. Instead, what we find in a lot of cases is that these skills remain covered up. They're not brought to the surface. And so then furthermore, they're not leveraged. And so this first pillar around really uncovering individual and collective strengths enables all skills, all abilities to come to the forefront and to really be put to work in the collective sense within the team. Pillar 2 is trust and psychological safety. When team members can rely on one another, when we can deliver for each other, we have dependability built into the team. And this is a big factor in trust. Furthermore, when we understand the intentions of our team members, we understand collectively what we're trying to achieve and how we're going to get there, this all contributes to trust. Without trust, we start to see some of the cracks, some of the challenges that too often integrate into organizations, such as politics and a siloed or territorial mentality or approach. Obviously not what we want to see and what will produce a high-performing team. Furthermore, psychological safety, a term that many of us are familiar with, enables us to bring our best to every interaction within the team, even if it's a little bit extreme or new, or in some cases, we think it might be a silly or dumb idea or solution. But when people feel comfortable being themselves, when they feel they won't be ridiculed, when they feel safe, and they feel like they belong to a group, this is a big factor in really driving team performance. Imagine this scenario. Your team is facing a critical customer-related issue, okay? And somebody within the group says, why don't we fire the customer? Something that's extreme, that in other cases may be ridiculed, the idea thrown out. But because somebody has the courage, because they feel comfortable bringing something so extreme to the conversation, the solution is not to fire the customer, but the solution comes from that initial idea that otherwise would not have been the spark had there not been safety within the team. And this is how high-performing teams work, is that they have that safety, which really creates the environment for these kinds of conversations, this kind of ideation and creativity to occur. Pillar 3, alignment. It's critically important for high-performing work teams to be aligned. And one of the challenges we see is that there is a considerable difference between conceptual understanding, meaning I get what we're trying to do, versus behavioral buy-in, meaning my behaviors are aligned to what we're collectively attempting to achieve. Alignment is so critical in that we need everyone rowing in the same direction. And building on the rowing metaphor, a mediocre team that is in sync will beat the best 8 rowers in the world who are not in sync. Just one rower out of sync will slow the entire team down. And we see this often in teams where there's an individual who is not aligned, behaviorally or otherwise, to the collective goal of the group. And so just that one individual who's misaligned can really hold the group back. And so alignment becomes critical in terms of everyone aligned to what it is that we're trying to achieve, both in strategy, but also in behaviors. Pillar 4, clarity. While one of the most mundane things to do within a team is to identify the key roles and responsibilities that each team member will hold. However, it is also one of the most critical factors in driving team performance. For instance, I recently worked with a senior team that went through this exercise, identifying for each their roles, their responsibilities, but also their priorities. Following the discussion, the team leader said, "This is the most strategic conversation perhaps that we have ever had." So while mundane on the surface, it's very important for team members to understand, not only for themselves, but of each other, what they are working on, where the overlap comes, and furthermore, where they can help one another. So in closing, you don't have to go back to grade 5 group work, those terrible group experiences. Instead, focus on the 4 pillars of team performance: identifying and leveraging individual strengths and collective strengths within the group. Secondly, building up trust and psychological safety within the team. The 3rd pillar, really ensuring that there's alignment amongst the group in terms of strategic direction, as well as performance and behavioral expectations. And lastly, the 4th pillar, ensuring that there's clarity, that everyone understands who's working on what, their roles, responsibilities, where the overlaps might be, the priorities, and where they can help each other.